The church smelled of pine resin and damp hymnals, the kind of scent that clung to wooden walls after too many winters. Outside, wind rattled loose shingles, rain threatening to break across the prairie. But inside, no one noticed the storm. Every gaze was locked on the bride, Mara Kane, the woman half the county called cursed. Her veil was black, not white, black silk pinned neatly against her dark hair, a frame for eyes that had already buried 3 husbands. The first died from a rattlesnake bite that no doctor could explain. The second was found face down in a horse trough. The third, a rancher with more money than sense, fell from his balcony after less than 6 months at her side. Folks whispered that she carried death in her dowry. Others swore she was a murderess who charmed men to the grave. And yet, she was here, walking slow and measured down the aisle, every step echoing against the plank floor, as though each one marked the toll of a bell. The groom, Sheriff Asa Granger, stood waiting at the altar. His silver badge caught the candlelight, a faint gleam on a chest broad as a barn door. He was a man used to law, order, and hard weather, the kind who'd ridden through gunfire and dust storms without flinching. But as Mara lifted her chin and smiled at him, something faltered in his stance. It wasn't a smile of joy or relief. It was sharper, knowing, like she held the ending of the story before the preacher even spoke the first word. The townsfolk shifted uneasily in their pews. Hats fidgeted in calloused hands. Boots scraped the wooden floor. Some women lowered their eyes, muttering half-prayers beneath their breath. No one trusted that smile. The preacher's voice cracked as he read from the worn Bible, his words trembling through the rafters. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. Outside, thunder rolled low and heavy, hooves across the sky. Inside, Mara's gloved hand rested lightly in Asa's, steady as iron. She did not blink, did not tremble. The sheriff's jaw flexed as though bracing himself against more than marriage vows. And then, just as the preacher reached, "Till death do you part," Asa swayed. At first it looked like nerves, then his knees buckled. His face drained pale. Gasps broke from the pews as he stumbled forward, arms jerking like a marionette with its strings cut. He collapsed at Mara's feet, hat rolling down the steps of the altar, badge clattering against the wood louder than the church bell itself. Murder. "He's poisoned," a voice shrieked from the back. "God save us, it's the widow's curse," another shouted. The preacher dropped his Bible with a thud. Skirts rustled as women clutched children to their sides. Men rushed forward, boots hammering the floor. Some bent over Asa, shaking him, calling his name, but his mouth only twitched, lips trying and... Instead, she lowered her black veil, calm as a shadow, and smiled. Soft, almost tender, as if this was no tragedy at all, but the fulfillment of something long expected. A woman sobbed. A chair toppled. The storm outside broke against the stained glass windows, rain pelting the glass in furious waves. Thunder shook the roof, drowning the chaos with its violence. And through it all, Mara's voice slipped low beneath her veil. Those close enough swore they heard her whisper, "Death keeps its promises." The sheriff's body twitched once, then went still. His silver badge caught the candlelight one last time before rolling into silence. Fear spread through the church like prairie fire. Men glared at the widow, some reaching for their revolvers, others backing away as though even standing near her might draw death upon them. The preacher stammered, his lips pale, unable to speak further. Then Mara turned, slowly. Her veil cast her face in darkness, but her voice carried clear above the storm. "Which of you," she asked, "believes in curses, and which of you believes in sin?" The words hung like smoke in the rafters. No one answered. Not a soul moved. But near the back, a boy saw what no one else noticed. His name was Travis Morrow, thin as a fence rail, half-starved, an orphan the town tolerated more than welcomed. He stood pressed against the wall, eyes wide, ribs showing beneath a threadbare shirt. While the others panicked, Travis's gaze had locked onto something small, something ordinary most would have missed. A thin trickle of black powder traced across the altar rail. It glistened faintly in the candlelight, leading toward the chalice of wine set out for the vows. Travis's stomach knotted. That wasn't accident. That was design. He'd seen black powder spilled before, out behind the livery when the cowhands loaded cartridges. This wasn't the work of curses or shadows. This was a hand, deliberate and cruel, laying death where no one else would look. His breath quickened. He wanted to shout, to point, to tell the men crouched over Asa that poison had a trail and trails always led to someone. But his voice stuck dry in his throat. What if they blamed him? What if they blamed Mara? And yet, why wasn't she afraid? While others trembled, Mara Kane stood tall, veil drawn, a faint curve on her lips, as if she had been waiting for this very moment. Waiting for what? Travis could not know. But as the storm hammered the church, and the sheriff's body lay cooling at the altar, one truth settled heavy in the boy's chest. This was no curse. This was a beginning. The storm had not passed when they carried Sheriff Asa Granger's body from the altar. Rain hammered the roof, leaking through in thin rivulets that streaked across the warped wood floor. The pews emptied in chaos, voices rising in a fevered clamor that clung to the air long after the church doors slammed open and shut. Witch! Black curse! Murderess! The words hissed like rattlesnakes, slithering from mouth to mouth as townsfolk stumbled into the muddy street. No one wanted to linger near the widow. Yet Mara Kane remained at the front, veil lowered, hands folded in front of her as if nothing in the world had changed. Inside, a few men stayed behind, grim-faced. Deputy Vernon Briggs was first to speak, his mustache wet with sweat and rain. "This ain't natural," he muttered, glaring at Mara. "Sheriff drops dead at the vows. You can call it a curse, but I call it murder." The preacher wrung his hands, lips pale. "She said nothing, did nothing." "She smiled," Briggs snapped. "That's enough." Mara's voice slid out, calm as ever, smooth against the jagged storm. "Would you hang a woman for smiling, deputy?" His jaw tightened. "I'd hang her for poison." A murmur rippled across the room. No one stepped closer to Mara, but no one dared touch her either. The widow seemed carved from obsidian, unmovable and gleaming dark in the candlelight. At the back of the church, Travis Morrow shrank against the wall. His eyes darted to the altar rail where the faint black powder still clung. He wanted to shout that it wasn't curses, it was something real. Gunpowder, deliberate as a bullet. But fear knotted his tongue. The deputy's eyes were hungry for a scapegoat. If Travis spoke, he might only feed the fire. The preacher raised his voice, trembling. "Let the coroner see him. Let the truth be found before we—" "Truth's already plain," Briggs barked, stepping toward Mara. "3 dead husbands, now a sheriff. You think the town'll sleep with her walking free?" A clap of thunder drowned his words. For a heartbeat, the church seemed to shiver. Mara lifted her veil, revealing her face in the flickering candlelight. She wasn't smiling now. Her expression was colder, sharper, like the blade of a knife pulled slow from its sheath. "Sheriff Granger was a proud man," she said. "He carried enemies the way some men carry pistols, always at his side. Perhaps you should ask which of them came to his wedding today." Briggs sneered. "You talk riddles, woman." "Do I?" she asked softly. "Or do you fear the answer?" The preacher tried again to calm them, but his words tangled under the weight of suspicion. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, suspicion thickened like smoke. Travis slipped out before the deputy noticed him. The rain hit his thin shirt like knives, but he didn't stop. He ducked into the alley beside the livery, breath sharp, chest burning. In his fist, a scrap of cloth he'd torn from the altar rail when no one was looking. A thread, dusted with the black grains. Proof. But proof was dangerous. He knew enough of sundown to understand how fast a mob could turn. They didn't want truth. They wanted someone to blame. Through the curtain of rain, Travis watched as townsfolk crowded near the saloon, voices rising in frightened shouts. "String her up!" a man bellowed. "She cursed him, same as the others!" Women clutched their children tighter. Some crossed themselves, others spat into the mud. On the church steps, Mara stood alone. She did not move even when the deputy raised his voice over the storm. "By authority of Sundown, I'm holding you till this is settled. You'll come quiet, or you'll be dragged." For a long moment, Mara said nothing. Then she lifted her chin, eyes gleaming dark beneath the stormlight.
"Deputy Briggs,"
she answered.
"you may hold me, but you cannot keep what's already been promised."
Her words sent another shiver through the crowd. Some men backed away, whispering that she spoke like a prophet of death. Others surged forward, emboldened by the deputy's stance. Travis's stomach twisted. He could see the rope already in their eyes, the mob's hunger for simple answers. And still, no one looked at the black smear he held in his fist. The boy pressed his back against the wet bricks, heart pounding. He thought of running, of leaving Sundown and its curses behind. But something in Mara's calm, something in the way she met the mob without flinching, held him frozen. Because if she wasn't afraid, then she knew what was coming, knew who had really poisoned the sheriff. And Travis realized, with a cold certainty, if he stayed silent, Sundown would bury the wrong body. Deputy Vernon Briggs wasted no time. By dusk, the widow was locked inside Sundown's single-cell jail, the storm still raging outside like judgment itself. The iron bars clanged shut with finality, echoing in the narrow room, where damp stone walls smelled of mildew and old fear. The crowd dispersed only after Briggs promised a hearing come morning. But everyone knew what that meant in Sundown. There was no judge here, no proper court. Justice came in the shape of rope and branch, guided by the loudest voices in the saloon. Mara Kane sat on the cot with her hands folded neatly, veil discarded on the bench beside her. She looked less like a prisoner than a queen waiting for her audience. Her eyes followed Briggs as he paced before the bars. "You'll hang by tomorrow," he said flatly. "Best pray the rain lets up so the crowd don't drown before they cheer." Mara tilted her head. "And if I told you the sheriff's death wasn't mine to claim?" Briggs's mouth curled. "4 men dead with your name tied to 'em. You think anyone cares for riddles?" In the corner, Travis pressed himself into the shadows. He had slipped into the jailhouse when no one was looking, his small frame invisible in the dark. He still carried the scrap of cloth dusted with powder, his thumb rubbing it raw. His heart pounded as he listened. He knew he should leave, but his legs refused. Something in Mara's calm voice held him fast. "Deputy," Mara continued, her voice low, steady. "Asa Granger had enemies. Men who wore smiles in daylight but carried knives at night. Ask yourself, would the widow strike in front of the whole town? Or would an enemy hide his hand and let my name do the killing for him?" Briggs slammed a fist against the bars. "You shut your mouth." But his eyes flickered, uncertain for a heartbeat. That was when the door creaked open. A figure stepped in, tall, coat dripping rainwater onto the plank floor. It was Judge Harlan Pike, though calling him a judge was generous. He was no more than a whiskey-soaked lawyer turned opportunist, appointed by nobody but himself. Still, he carried weight in Sundown, because he had money, and men who owed him favors. "Evening, Deputy," Pike drawled, removing his wet hat. "Word travels fast. Sheriff's gone. widows locked up, and the town's ready for blood. Briggs straightened. Then we'll give it to him. Pike's eyes slid toward Mara. He studied her with something between amusement and unease. Strange thing, a bride smiling at her groom's last breath. You'll forgive the town for drawing conclusions. Mara didn't blink. Briggs turned their fury on him. Tomorrow, Pike said, settling his hat back on. We hold trial at high noon. Quick, clean, and final. He tipped his hat toward Mara, then turned to Briggs. Keep her breathing till then. The crowd'll want the spectacle. When he was gone, silence pressed heavy. Briggs spat into the corner and stalked out, leaving only the lantern glow. Travis finally moved. His foot scraped, and Mara's eyes snapped to the shadow where he stood. Boy, she said softly. Travis froze. Come out. His body obeyed before his mind caught up. He stepped into the lantern light, dripping wet, clutching the rag in his fist. Mara's gaze dropped to his hand. You saw it. He swallowed hard. Powder. On the rail. It wasn't you. Her expression didn't change, but something sharp glinted in her eyes, like the first spark on flint. Then you understand. Someone wanted Asa dead, and me condemned. Travis nodded, throat tight. But if I tell them, they'll kill me too. Mara leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. Then don't tell them. Tell me. And when the time comes, you'll speak where it matters most. Outside, hoofbeats splashed through the mud, then faded. The storm began to thin, moonlight breaking through ragged clouds. Travis looked down at the scrap in his hand. The black dust smeared across his palm like ink, like guilt. He thought of Asa's badge hitting the wood, of Mara's calm smile, of the mob chanting for rope. He thought of all the nights he'd gone hungry, ignored by the same town now hungry for blood. And for the first time, he realized he held power. The truth was his, and so was the choice of what to do with it. Mara's voice cut the silence one last time, steady, unshaken. Decide carefully, Travis Morrow. By tomorrow's noon, one of us hangs, and it need not be me. Morning came gray and sullen, the storm broken but the mud still sucking at wagon wheels and boots. Sundown awoke restless. Men left their breakfast half-eaten. Women pulled children from the street. By dawn, talk of a trial had swollen into a fever. The widow's name rolled off every tongue, heavy with fear and hunger for spectacle. At the jailhouse, Deputy Vernon Briggs stood tall in his badge and swagger, but sweat already shone on his brow. He'd spent half the night at the saloon, whipping the crowd into a frenzy with whiskey and whispers. Now, as he leaned against the barred door, his eyes never left Mara Kane. She sat calm as ever on the cot, black dress smoothed neatly, hair pinned as if she were ready for a wedding still, not a hanging. The quiet unnerved him more than curses ever could. You best pray, Briggs muttered, because once Pike bangs his gavel, rope's the only hymn you'll hear. Mara met his stare without blinking. I've prayed enough for men like you, Deputy. It seems heaven no longer listens. Before Briggs could bark a reply, the door burst open. Travis Morrow stumbled inside, thin chest heaving, eyes wide from running. He held something in his palm, wrapped in the rag he'd guarded all night. Briggs scowled. What in hell are you doing here, boy? Travis swallowed hard. He looked at Mara, then at the deputy. His hand trembled as he unwrapped the cloth, revealing the black smear. This was on the altar rail. Powder. Not curses. Someone put it there. The room went still. Mara's eyes gleamed, but she said nothing. Briggs snorted. That's dirt, boy. Dirt you're mistaken for salvation. Travis shook his head fiercely. No, sir. I've seen powder before. Behind the livery, when the cowhands load cartridges. It burns black. This was planted. Briggs strode forward, snatched the cloth, and shoved it into his pocket. Town don't need fairy tales from a stray mutt. Get out before I thrash you. Travis flinched but didn't move. His voice cracked. "If you hang her, the real killer walks free." Mara leaned closer to the bars, her voice steady, carrying like a sermon. "You see, Deputy? The boy speaks more truth than all your saloon talk. Someone murdered Asa Granger, and you'd rather bury me than find the hand that struck." Briggs's face darkened. "Enough! Noon's comin', and with it, the rope." He shoved Travis toward the door, but the boy caught himself on the frame, eyes wild. "Then I'll tell the town," Travis blurted. "I'll tell them what I saw." Briggs froze, then laughed low and mean. "And who'll believe you, boy? Sundown's been spitting on you since you could walk. They'll string you beside her just to keep the tale neat." The words cut deep because Travis knew they were true. His body sagged, but Mara's voice caught him like a hand on his shoulder. Quicker than rope. The bells began to toll from the chapel, iron tongues summoning the crowd. Briggs cursed under his breath, grabbed the keys, and yanked the door open. Time. By noon, half the town packed the square. Men on rooftops, women pressed behind wagons, children perched on barrels wide-eyed and trembling. The gallows had been erected overnight, a crude beam across 2 posts, rope dangling like a viper ready to strike. Judge Pike stood before it all, gavel in hand, his voice booming with the confidence of a man who mistook greed for justice. "Citizens of Sundown, we are gathered to reckon with the Black Widow, whose husbands fell like flies, whose smile cursed our sheriff to the grave. Let there be no doubt, today we deliver judgment." The crowd roared, hats waved, the rope swung. Briggs dragged Mara up the steps, his grip tight on her arm. She did not stumble. She walked as if each plank were a polished aisle, her black dress trailing like smoke. The mob jeered, but her gaze never faltered. Travis squeezed between bodies at the edge of the square, heart hammering. The rag felt hot in his pocket, the powder grains digging into his skin. He knew if he stayed quiet, she would hang. If he spoke, he might too. Pike raised his gavel. "Mara Kane, have you words before sentences passed?" The square hushed. Mara's voice rang clear. "Only this. Sheriff Asa Granger was not mine to claim. His death was wrought by hands that fear the light. If you kill me now, you bury truth with me." A ripple moved through the crowd, unease undercutting their hunger. Pike lifted the gavel higher. "Enough riddles! Justice demands the rope!" Travis's chest tightened, his mouth dried. He felt every eye, every shadow pressing him down. Then he thought of the sheriff's badge hitting the floor, the whisper of "Death keeps its promises," the powder trail glowing in candlelight. Before he knew it, his voice cracked through the silence. "Wait!" Heads turned. Faces scowled. Pike lowered the gavel. "Who speaks?" Travis stepped forward, knees weak, fists clenched. I saw it! On the altar! Powder! Someone planted it! Sheriff Granger was murdered, but not by her." Gasps rippled. Briggs went red as fire. "Lies! This boy's a stray rat, nothing more!" But Travis forced the rag high, the black smear plain under the sun. "It's here, proof. You want to hang the widow? Then you'd best hang me too, because I swear it on my life. She didn't do it." The square erupted, half in outrage, half in shock. Pike's face twisted, torn between mob and evidence. Mara's eyes found Travis through the storm of voices. The square held its breath. The noose swayed, creaking in the dry wind. Travis's words still echoed, raw and unsteady, yet sharp enough to cut the crowd's frenzy in half. Judge Pike's face tightened, lips pulled thin. "A boy's chatter does not stay justice," he said, but his voice lacked the thunder it carried before. Murmurs rippled across the people of Sundown. Some sneered at Travis, spitting into the dust. Others shifted uneasily, eyes darting from the rag in his hand to the widow on the gallows. Doubt had cracked the mob's hunger, and once doubt seeped in, it spread like fire in dry grass. Briggs stormed down the steps, fury blotching his face. "You'll not poison this town with lies, boy." He lunged for Travis, but the orphan dodged, clutching the rag high like a banner. "Look," Travis shouted, voice cracking. "This isn't dirt. This is powder. Someone meant for the sheriff to die here, at this altar of vows. You all know it." A silence followed, uneasy and thick. Then an old rancher's voice rang out. "Sheriff had enemies, more than one." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. The crowd stirred. Men nodded, women whispered, and suddenly the story of Mara's cursed smile seemed less certain. Mara Kane stood tall at the gallows, her hands bound but her gaze unbroken. "You fear curses," she said, her voice calm as iron. "But curses do not spill powder. Curses do not choose the sheriff's cup. Men do. Men in this very town." Her words rolled through the square, heavier than any preacher's sermon. Pike slammed his gavel against a barrel. "Enough! Sundown demands order." But the order shattered when a shot cracked through the air. Wood splintered on the gallows post inches from Mara's head. The crowd screamed, scattering. From the edge of the square, 3 riders appeared, rifles raised, dust pluming behind them. One wore a black duster, face hidden in shadow, but his voice carried like a whip. "The widow speaks true. Sheriff Granger's blood was paid for, and she wasn't the one who bought it." Gasps ripped through the people. Pike staggered back, pale as chalk. Briggs fumbled for his revolver, shouting for men to hold the line. But fear had already split the mob. They scattered like cattle before thunder. Travis dove aside as the riders pushed through, their horses scattering barrels and men alike. The leader pointed straight at the gallows. "Cut her loose!" For the first time, Briggs hesitated. Sweat trickled down his temple. "This ain't law," he muttered. "No," Mara said, eyes steady on him. Then, for the first time, her hand touched his shoulder, steadying him. "You spoke, Travis Morrow. That's more than most men dare. Now the town must choose whether to hear you or silence you." The riders circled, guns keeping Pike and Briggs at bay. Dust and fear thickened the air. Some townsfolk shouted for order, others for blood. Pike raised his hands, voice shaking. "This is madness. If you leave here alive, Sundown burns." Mara's smile returned then. Not cruel, not tender, but certain. "Sundown was burning long before today. You just never looked at the smoke." Her eyes met Travis's once more. Truth always costs blood. The only question is whose. The crowd pressed tighter. The riders aimed higher. Briggs snarled, with his revolver half raised. The square was a powder keg, and Travis knew the next breath could set it aflame. He clutched the rag tighter, his voice raw as he whispered to himself, "Do I run, or do I stand?" Before he could answer, thunder cracked again. Not from the sky, but from rifles. The square erupted, screams tearing the air. Smoke swallowed the sun. And in that smoke, Mara Kane stood tall, her veil fluttering like a dark flag, while Travis Morrow felt the ground shift beneath him. He did not yet know if Sundown would hang him, crown him, or bury him, But he knew one thing with bone-deep certainty. Nothing in this town would ever be the same again.